Picture a modern tattoo studio. Clean, sterile, a sheet of plastic over the chair. You scroll a phone for hours, picking the exact design. It's entirely your choice, your aesthetic, your story, told however you want. Now picture a body found frozen in the Alps in 1991, preserved by ice for over 5,000 years, with 61 tattoos covering it. No needle gun, no ink bottle, no design consultation. The tattoos weren't pictures of anything. No animals, no symbols you'd recognize as art, just simple lines and dots, clustered in oddly specific places. Joints, the lower back, behind the knee. The man wearing them had no say in modern tattoo culture, no phone to scroll for inspiration. And yet, what's on his skin might be more medically sophisticated than anything in a modern tattoo parlor. The oldest tattooed human body ever discovered has no pictures on it at all, just simple lines, placed with strange precision, exactly where his joints hurt the most. So what if the first tattoos weren't art at all? What if they were something closer to medicine? Let's be clear about how dangerous this actually was. No sterilization, no antiseptic, no understanding of infection at the bacterial level. Every single tattoo carried a real, meaningful risk of wound infection that could, in the wrong conditions, become fatal. And yet the impulse to mark the body goes back further than almost any other human behavior we have direct evidence for. Pigments like ochre were being used for body decoration as far back as roughly 200,000 years ago, older than confirmed evidence for tailored clothing, which only appears around 50 to 170,000 years ago, based on genetic dating of body lice divergence. That means the urge to put something visible and permanent onto the human body may be one of the single oldest continuously practiced human behaviors on record. Older than agriculture, older than writing. In some readings, older than clothing itself. If tattooing carried real medical risk and no guaranteed aesthetic payoff in a world without mirrors, the question becomes urgent. What was worth that risk, consistently, across tens of thousands of years, and dozens of unrelated cultures? This is Ötzi the Iceman, discovered in the Ötztal Alps on the Austria-Italy border in 1991. Radiocarbon dated to roughly 3,300 BCE, making him approximately 5,300 years old. His body bears 61 tattoos, almost entirely simple lines and dots, not recognizable images. Currently, the oldest tattooed human skin ever directly examined by researchers. On paper, this makes no sense. A practice with real infection risk, no written explanation, and as far as researchers can tell, no decorative imagery at all, persisting across thousands of years and completely unconnected ancient cultures. If it wasn't about looking a certain way, what was it actually doing for the people who carried it on their skin for the rest of their lives? Researchers studying Ötzi's tattoos found something remarkable when they cross-referenced the tattoo locations with X-rays and CT scans of his skeleton. Many of the tattoos were placed directly over joints, showing degeneration consistent with arthritis. His lower spine, his knees, his ankles. The pattern is too specific and too consistent with documented physical wear to be coincidental. Several researchers have proposed these tattoos function similarly to acupuncture, a targeted, repeated treatment applied directly to sites of chronic pain, using the era's available technology, puncturing the skin and introducing soot or ash into the wound. Picture a man in his late 40s, old by the standards of his world, whose joints ache constantly from a lifetime spent walking mountain terrain. He has no medicine cabinet, no anti-inflammatory, nothing resembling modern pain relief. But someone in his community has learned through trial and observation, passed down across generations, that puncturing the skin in specific places and rubbing ash into the wound seems to ease that particular kind of pain. He submits to it 61 times across his life, in the exact places where it hurt the most. The oldest tattoos we've ever found weren't there to be seen. They were there to be felt, a treatment, not a decoration. Evidence for the use of pigments like ochre for body decoration dates back roughly 200,000 years, significantly older than confirmed evidence for tailored clothing, which only emerges around 50 to 170,000 years ago, based on genetic divergence dating of human body lice, which can only survive in worn clothing. This means humans were marking and decorating their bodies before they were consistently wearing clothes at all. In a world with no mirrors, no written language, and no way to verbally announce status from a distance, a mark on the body became one of the only available tools for instantly communicating who you were, what group you belonged to, what you had survived. Picture a world with no fabric draped over anyone's shoulders yet. Bare skin is simply what everyone has. The only canvas available for saying anything about yourself is the skin itself. A mark applied here, in this specific pattern, on this specific person, becomes instantly readable information to everyone in the group. This person survived something. This person belongs to this family line. This person has done this before. Long before anyone had a name for identity, the human body had already become the place where identity got written down. We were marking our bodies to say who we were before we ever covered them up. The skin was the first place humans ever wrote anything down. Across numerous documented tribal and indigenous tattooing traditions worldwide, separated by oceans and thousands of years, with no possible contact between them, a recurring pattern emerges. Tattoos earned through significant pain or ritual endurance, functioning as permanent, unforgeable proof of an achievement, a rite of passage, a survived hardship. Unlike a story that can be exaggerated or a claim that can be disputed, a tattoo applied during a specific, often painful ceremonial process couldn't be faked. It was physical, permanent evidence, visible to the entire community for the rest of a person's life. Picture a young person in an ancient community undergoing a tattooing ritual that takes hours, using tools that cause real, sustained pain, with no anesthetic of any kind. They could not fake having gone through this. They could not claim status they hadn't earned. The mark on their skin was permanent testimony, visible proof for the rest of their life that they had endured something the rest of the community would recognize and respect on sight, without a single word needing to be spoken. A tattoo couldn't be exaggerated, borrowed, or faked. In a world with no records and no way to verify a claim, pain etched into skin was the most honest form of proof a person could carry. Here's the part that changes how big this story actually is. Every reveal so far treats medicine, identity, and proof of endurance as three separate explanations for ancient tattooing. In Ötzi's case specifically, researchers have proposed something more radical. These weren't separate categories at all. They may have been the same act, serving multiple functions simultaneously. A tattoo placed over an arthritic joint wasn't just treating pain. It was also a visible, permanent record on his body of a chronic condition he'd lived with and managed for years. Readable in a sense, almost like a medical chart written directly onto skin, carried with him everywhere. For anyone in his community who understood the markings to read, this is one interpretation researchers have proposed, not a settled fact, but it's a genuinely compelling one. The line between ancient medicine, identity, and record-keeping wasn't actually three different things. On the body of one 5,000-year-old man, it may have been all the same mark. You're back in that tattoo studio, scrolling, choosing, entirely your decision. But now you know what's underneath that decision, the act itself. Skin, ink, permanence carries an inheritance stretching back over 5,000 years, to a man whose marks weren't chosen for how they'd look, but earned through pain, placed with purpose, carried as proof of a life genuinely lived. The specific design has changed completely. The underlying human impulse to make something about your life permanent and visible on your own skin hasn't changed at all. You think a tattoo is something you choose to say about yourself. For most of human history, it was something your body said for you. Proof of pain survived, status earned, and a story too important to risk forgetting. Subscribe to Arvin, because the greatest stories in history are the ones nobody ever taught you.